All right, Lagos, it is 5:15 and you are tuned in to the marketplace. And indeed, we're going to be talking about something interesting. And I say interesting because who would have thought that we'll be thinking of uh another carrier after the interesting drama that happened the last time? Well, indeed, we'll be having that conversation. And joining me this evening is Yemi Dada. He is the MD Harrier Global Services Limited. And we'll be talking about Nigeria's consideration of a new flagship airline. Good evening, Yemi, and good to have you this evening.
Good evening, Joy. Thank you for having me.
All right, Lagos. Here's where you get to also come through. You want to share your thoughts? I'm sure you have interesting ones to share. So, as always, to be a part of Marketplace, you can share your thoughts with me, 0809 4440981 on WhatsApp, and we'll take your thoughts from there. Okay. When I came across this update, I had a few things to say, interesting thoughts to say, but I'll let you explain to me or share your thoughts and expand them better. Because seeing that the government is saying that they want another carrier airline, however, the caveat here is they say that they wouldn't be investing a single kobo in this national carrier. Please help me understand what this is or how this is going to pan out.
Well, it's actually I think a pragmatic shift on the part of the government.
Okay.
If you've gone through what the industry players were saying when the last carrier that became a fiasco was being planned,
Mm-hmm.
it's been known that in modern times, governments don't invest money in national carriers. They can help midwife one,
Okay.
put in the enabling environment for private sector
Mm.
to come in and provide the required investment and service.
Okay.
And I think what the current government has realized is that, look, the aviation sector in Nigeria has been carried by the private sector over the last 30 to 40 odd years since Nigeria
Mm.
Airways demise. So coming to come and invest money in a national carrier, which
Mm-hmm.
is capital intensive, is going to divert needed funds from education, from healthcare, and so on, things that services that government is still grappling with, and then
Mm.
you go to put that money in a national carrier that then will take government's attention in management,
Mm.
and government has no business
In
in
business.
business, so
Yes.
that is what this government is signaling by saying, yes,
Okay.
we would like to have a national carrier other
Right.
than the regular flag carrier, but we will only help midwife one without us necessarily putting
But the
our
funds
money.
to
Yes.
hmm. Interesting, interesting scope that we're seeing so far. Um, But now let's even look at the perspective of a foreign proposal. So, considering they actually come up with the foreign exchange, will that be more appealing to the government? Just trying to figure this out.
Yeah, yes, necessarily so. Every country in the world is looking for foreign direct investment
Hmm.
to be in country, and for very odd basic reasons in economics.
Okay.
If the investors bring in money
Right.
uh, and it comes into your economy, then it becomes capital that works in your economy, and a lot of it actually resides here. What will then be repatriated will be some portions of the profit rather than the way we
How it used to
currently
be.
have
Right.
carriers coming into Nigeria. The entire amount of the ticket is It's
Astronomical.
earned by the foreign company, and they only pay the little staff they keep here and for little services that they do here. So it's much more beneficial to the government. You will get the foreign exchange benefit of an FDI, and then you
Okay.
will also get the benefit of jobs created by the business that is resident in your territory.
Hmm. Interesting stuff. Uh, there's a question here. No name attached to it. Okay, so please, if you're sending your questions or sending in any message, please always attach your name. I only see a number. The well, the person is basically asking, do we need a national carrier?
Yes, we do need a national carrier, or let me rephrase that. We need a
Right.
strong carrier, national or flag or whatever name you call it, resident in
Okay.
Nigeria, that carries the hopes and aspirations of Nigerian people. It has so many implications for pride, for the economy itself, as a catalyst for development, for connecting people to places and businesses. And so, and also for the benefits of localization of industry, the growth of other allied services that surround it, and even the other local carriers will benefit from a very strong carrier that is
Mm,
properly capitalized, that is able to do what most of these other carriers are doing to Nigeria.
okay. So currently I know that Air Peace flies overseas. And well, no, I was it's operates international routes and it's constantly expanding, as we can see. But what's stopping a strong domestic airline like this from actually being designated as a national carrier? Is it a matter of infrastructure? Is it a matter of government support, or is it regulatory barriers that are holding it back from expanding or from
Well,
actually achieving this purpose?
in actual fact, you can't have an airline called a national carrier if it is really not majority owned by the government.
Okay.
And so even other carriers that used to be national carriers like British Airways are no
Mm-hmm.
longer called national carriers. They're flag carriers, but because right now they're actually privately held enterprises.
Right.
So in that same way of thinking, which is where our government is going, we'll probably end up with a strong flag carrier. And um, Air Peace technically is already a flag carrier. It's
Right.
already taking benefits of the bilateral air services agreement to many nations in West
Mm.
Africa and some other parts of Africa, South Africa. I think they fly to Dubai and to the United Kingdom. So yes, to that extent, they're a flag carrier. But what people are looking at is a stronger carrier that is better capitalized, probably trading on the Nigerian Stock Exchange or other stock exchanges with strong enough capital to be able to do much more than Airpeace is currently doing. They're doing
Hmm.
what they can, but it could be
Right.
better.
It could be better. Well, that's actually good to know because I want to. I'm just wondering, what are the benefits of even having a national carrier for Nigeria, seeing that I don't know. I don't. I'm still trying to understand this. I'm not saying it's not um, important to have one, but I'm just wondering, would it be strategic and economically beneficial for Nigeria to have one? And where would this even, how would this even stand or be placed when we're looking at it within the West African aviation hub?
Well, the national carrier, or I will continue to again use the flag carrier, a strong flag carrier to support that,
Okay.
especially since government is not putting money, will need to be substantially Nigerian owned. The would for it to be termed a Nigerian flag carrier, and for you to take the benefits of the bilateral or multilateral or open skies agreement Nigeria has with other countries. And it will also need to drive strategic connectivity, based on the corporate or the aspiration of Nigeria as an entity, as a nation. We need to look at, okay, what are these strategic connections that we need to have to either bring
Right.
investment into Nigeria or move similar businesses, services around the world. You probably want a carrier that connects the oil capitals of nations because we're a big oil trading nation. You also probably want one that connects the telco companies, things like that. And then maybe strategically in terms of tourism, um, potentials, where do you want to connect to be able to bring people easily to come and see what you have to offer. And then it
Right.
also creates jobs. The economic impact of a working career cannot be overemphasized because you have the ability to do just-in-time ordering for industries and so on and so forth. And it's known that the airline creates jobs massively.
True. True.
And then more importantly, there's what you would call soft power, where you have your carrier able to dictate some terms, unlike when we have countries telling us, oh, we can't carry your citizens, or we can only reduce the fare if XYZ is done.
And put in
So
place,
you're sort
right.
of held hostage if you do not have a strong carrier that can really enter into the fray, enter the ring and battle other carriers.
Hmm. Oof. Now we know the benefits. As you say, there are benefits to certain things. Now let's also look at what are the drawbacks? What are the potential drawbacks? And could this actually become another drain on public resources?
Yeah,
Or
if it's
okay,
a
go ahead.
national carrier that has government investment in it, there's a whole lot of drawbacks.
Drawbacks.
The
Mm,
financial risks of, you're setting up with high cost, and so you're diverting money from needed sectors to come and try and build this business. And we know
right.
that government is not good at managing businesses. There will be political
Sadly so.
interference. It
Mm-hmm.
can cause market distortion. In the past, we used to have a way that Nigeria Airways would charge a fare and nobody could charge beyond that. So
Mm,
it can cause market distortion. And then you have reputational risk. If a national carrier fails, then it gives the impression that, one, the industry in Nigeria is not strong enough, so you probably are not going to get anybody to bring in money to invest in it. Virgin Nigeria was the flag carrier. It failed
mm-hmm.
for no reason or no fault of Nigeria, but
Okay.
Nigeria still carries that stain till tomorrow. If you're trying to set up an
Getting
airline
to
now,
that,
people will tell
it
you, oh,
also refer
if Virgin can fail, what makes you think you're going to succeed? So those are the
right.
kind of demerits of having a national carrier. So there's a lot of risk and the risk of waste attached to it.
Interesting stuff. Mm. Well, as always, Lagos, remember that you can be a part of the marketplace. You can share your thoughts, questions, suggestions as well. Those are very welcome. The number, as always, to share your thoughts this evening is 0809 4440981 on WhatsApp. Love to hear from you. But let's take this quick breather. On the other side, we'll continue the conversation and we'll be taking a look at, because I want to know. You've mentioned Virgin. I'd also like us to get into that and explore why we've had so many failed attempts at having a national carrier. But we'll take that conversation on the other side. Lagos, don't go nowhere. Stay tuned to Smooth 98.1.
And you're listening to Smooth 98. Keep listening.
We're just having a brief, very brief breather. We'll be back in.
All right.
Doesn't change.
On the transitional license, singing the melody, lyrics that mean something.
For the night. The smooth session. On smooth 8.1. Mondays to Thursdays from 8 p.m.
Accessible, informed.
All right, Lagos, welcome back to the second half of Marketplace. And indeed, today we're taking a look at Nigeria's consideration of a new flagship airline. And my guest who's joining me virtually is Yemi Dada. He's the MD, Harrier Global Services Ltd. Glad to still have you with me. And hey, Lagos, I know that you still want to get in on the conversation. So to join in, the number hasn't changed, 0809 4440981. I'd love to hear from you as well, your take on the conversation. And talking about the conversation, yes, let's get back to the question I posed before we took that quick breather, because you had mentioned Virgin Nigeria. Yes, there have been several failed attempts at actually creating or even reviving a national airline. What exactly? Well, why have we had so many failed attempts at getting this on board?
Well, I would say some of the reasons are a bit complicated, but
Okay.
mainly things that have the hands of government and people without pure intentions behind it will necessarily lead to failures. Um, Nigeria Airways, as the national carrier at the time, was well established, was a dominant carrier at a point in
Mm,
time, and could still have been revived, but the government of President Obasanjo decided to liquidate the airline. The airline was very asset rich and it could have been recapitalized, repurposed, and set to fly. But
okay.
that government took a very poor decision to liquidate the
Mm,
airline. And since then, other governments have tried to come to replicate it. The Virgin Nigeria experiment was a flag carrier
right.
that was well established, but poorly managed
Managed.
in the sense
Mm,
that the Virgin guys did not have the best intentions of the business at heart. They were here to
to
make a
just
quick
milk the
buck.
money.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
and the partners they had very little experience in the industry
Mm,
about the business, and they were relying solely on Virgin Nigeria management. And the agreement was really skewed against the other business owners and against Nigeria in that sense. And
mm,
naturally, it was going to fail. The terms were too steep. There was no way they could make a ton of profit, and that failed. Um, Other attempts to float a national carrier by other governments have always been ended up on paperwork, except the last one that was attempted, and that was also
Nigeria
shrouded in a
Air.
lot of
Mm,
controversy. And that was because it wasn't a transparent process. The
right.
minister at the time, I think, wasn't being totally honest as to what his intentions were. And
Mm,
that's why that also ended as a fiasco. But aside that, we just ordinarily expect that when you establish a national carrier, it's not like it's a given that we'll have it poorly managed, but
okay.
because of the past experience of things that have been government owned, we sort of expect that they will turn out to be very bad.
I wonder what we'll never get back to where we were before. And I say this because air prices have risen since 2023. It's not just international fares, it also affected the local fares as well. Because before you could, you know, just go to certain places without having to break bank. But now you have to rethink your travel plans. Can you walk us through the key reasons why uh, this persistent price hike is still happening?
Well, there is, if you look at the economy since you said 2023,
Right.
the devaluation of the naira um, has had an effect across board.
Okay.
Um, you know
True.
that
True that.
salaries have risen,
Hmm.
salaries and wages have risen.
All right.
Many things that the airlines pay for locally are paid for in foreign exchange. And so
Mm.
your aircraft leases, your spare parts, a lot of the insurance are paid in dollars.
Right.
The price of jet fuel has also been rising. At the point, it was up to about 1,500 per liter.
Mm-hmm.
It's come down gradually to around about 1,100.
Okay.
And those are just some of the direct inputs that causes the price to rise. But that is not the only reason why you have high ticket prices. The industry has been battered domestically for many years that the airlines themselves don't have enough capacity. And now you have a situation where there are not enough seats and there are so many people wanting to travel. And
Okay.
we know what it is about supply and demand.
And
So
demand.
yeah,
Mm.
so that affects that. But for the international carriers, their excuse was that they were owed at a point. There was the
Yeah, they
forex
couldn't take
was
back.
held.
Yeah,
They
take
couldn't take
fund the
back.
funds
Yeah,
out. Mm.
but a lot of that should be adjusted, and I think they should come back to a bit more normal, considering where we are with the exchange rate today.
Okay. Interesting space we're in because well, I know you've just spoken about the jet fuel and all that, and looking at how much uh the global prices are dropping below $70 per barrel, and that's been since April. One would expect that a corresponding reduction will be will impact the fuel costs. And with that, makes me wonder, shouldn't we also be expecting a decrease in airfares anytime soon? Or are there other factors, you know, at play in this industry? Because if Dangote has said, okay, I can reduce the rather the fuel cost, can this also be translated to the air
Yes,
well, jet fuel
The
rather?
Dangote refinery reduced the Jet A1 price. Ex refinery, I think, was about 950 for
Mm,
bulk purchase at a point. So you know you have to add cost of transportation,
hmm.
distribution, and all the rest of that. So that's why it's
Right.
over 1,000 naira that will end up at the airlines. So
Hmm.
it's not been a significant decrease from the 1,500 when importation was high to now.
Right.
And I mentioned earlier that these are not the only factors that affect pricing. There are not enough airplanes flying for the
Mm,
number of passengers who want to travel. So
true, true.
laws of demand and supply is one of the
Also
things that's
fact.
keeping the price a
Mm,
little high.
mm, mm. And talking about laws of demand and supply, I know that Nigeria currently has over 30 airports. Some are designated as international. However, in your view, should every state in Nigeria have an international airport? Or is this something that wouldn't be sustainable in the long term?
Every state cannot have an international airport. But
Okay.
every state does not even necessarily have to have an airport. But
Okay.
yes, if they're able to have the economic activity to justify it,
Having it in the
yes,
first place.
Yeah, but
Mm,
it does not make sense, and it doesn't help the industry if you have international airports. What you say an international airport, that means
there are
an
certain
airport of,
standards.
yes, of entry into the territory and departure. So
Right,
you have Lagos, Abuja, Kano, Port Harcourt, Enugu as international airports.
right.
Some other airports become international airports designated as such when you are operating heavy outflow charters like the Hajj. So you have Maiduguri, Lorin, Sokoto, and some others being designated as international airports for that purpose. But you
Mm,
can't have that everywhere because the traffic doesn't support it. The economic activity does not
doesn't support
support it.
that.
So it's wishful to and nice to have, but not necessary.
I like the fact that you say it's wishful, but not necessary. And that brings me to my final question this evening because I know we're entering peak travel season because summer holidays and some people just want to go to where the sun is shining. I know it shines here sometimes, but looking forward to getting into the pools and having all the fun activities set up for themselves. Well, that's for summer. We still have the festivities, that's the Christmas holidays coming around the end of the year. My question is, what's your um, aviation outlook for Nigeria in the second half? And are airlines and regulators ready to handle the increased demand? We see the rush and we see how people usually scramble. So I love your take on this.
Well, let's start from the regulators and the facilities that we have. It's
Right.
always a stretch during summer returns and departures when people are leaving the country.
Mm-hmm.
And during festive seasons when people come into the country en masse and they travel around, the facilities are usually stretched, and
Mm,
the local carriers themselves are stretched. And sometimes, especially around Christmas, you find out that weather becomes a challenge
true.
when you have reduced visibility due to the harmattan.
Mm,
So it sometimes leads to disruptions, people missing their flights, the regulators chasing operators to keep to flight schedule, and so
right.
on. So that is not going to change this year or anytime soon. The government is
Clearly.
trying to catch up with
Okay.
expanding facilities. It's going to get worse in Lagos because the minister announced on the same platform where he spoke about the national carrier that the old Muritala Mohammed International Terminal is going to be uh, demolished and another one
Will
reconstructed.
be
That means
constructed.
the entire traffic in Lagos
Hmm.
is going to go through the new terminal that is already constricted
Already.
on the ground
Yeah.
space
Hmm.
and the, so you're going to have to go through
A whole lot of drama
some
again.
yes, some drama until that the new one is completed to give more room for even the airline offices and their operations and the baggage carousels will not be enough. And that it's going to be some discomfort, but we hope that on the long run, when they've done the right thing, you will have the benefits of construction. Let's put it that way.
Okay. I just want to quickly ask. This I saw a post recently. Some passenger was I don't know what transpired at the airport, but he was a bit unruly, and from the way it was handled, I don't know what the outcome was. But I want to know, what does the NCAA, that's the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, play in protecting passengers in general from exploitative pricing and just general operations?
Well,
What's their
the
own
Nigerian
role?
Civil Aviation Authority is saddled with the responsibility of consumer protection, and
Okay.
they've actually upgraded it used to be just a unit under the Directorate of Air Transport Regulation,
Right.
And it's now been added as a directorate to the Public Relations Directorate. And they've actually been doing quite well.
Okay.
Passengers need to know that you cannot resort to self-help. The
Okay.
rules in aviation are very strict and against unruly
Behavior.
passengers.
Okay.
Yes, and you may be right and then turn out to be wrong based on your reaction. So people should be advised to keep calm, approach the NCA office. They're everywhere at every major airport in Nigeria. The Consumer Protection Department is there. They have officers on ground. You can
Right.
take your grouse to them and they will approach the airline and assist you if you have due compensation or you do whatever it is that is due to you, you will definitely get.
Mm. Thank you so much, Yemi Dada. He is the MD, Harrier Global Service Limited. Thank you so much for for your time, for even breaking things down. However, how can Lagos listeners, well, I wouldn't say just Lagos, how can the listeners reach out to you? They have further questions, they'll like it, more insights, your social media handle that they can, reach out and get more information about you and what your services affords them.
Right, you can reach out. My ex handle is
Right,
Yemi Dada on X,
right.
and you can send me an email, yemi at harglobal.com, or you can send it to info at harglobal.com.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, and I trust that you definitely will have a pleasant evening. Even though it's a Monday, I hope you definitely get the rest that you deserve.
Thank you very much, Joy. Thanks for having me.
My absolute pleasure. Thank